Hello everybody. This is Dr. Chamdeshwari, Associate Professor of Computer Science. Today in this session we are going to see the box model of cascading style sheet. The objective of this session is we are going to see what is CSS first and HTML and CSS, how are they connected. Then we'll see the rule structure of CSS and then we'll see some more about the selectors, then background, box model, div component and cascading and inheritance in CSS, and the last, what are the resources that are available. The purpose of CSS. HTML is the content and meaning and CSS helps to convey that meaning. So it allows the developers to separate the content from layout and design. So content and design inherently different in nature, so they ought to be separated. If they are separated, then we can concentrate separately on content or on the layout and design. So the change in design does not require a change in content. So the CSS stands for Cascading Style Sheet. So it is a text file with an extension .css. And it contains a series of commands or rules. These rules tell the HTML how to display the content. So this is an example. So we have the set of rules. So this is a rule for the body, how the body content should be displayed. And this is an ID and these two are also ID. So all these things are put in a file called style.css. So the benefits of CSS. So we have already seen we are separating the structure from presentation. So it provides advanced control of presentation, and when you have multiple pages, maintenance of pages becomes easier when you have CSS, and it helps in loading the pages fastly, and you have better accessibility for disabled users. In that sense, if you want to look into a bigger font, you can change it. If you want to look into a smaller font, you can also change it. And it is easy to learn. HTML and CSS work together to produce beautiful and functional websites. HTML, as I said, it gives you the structure, and CSS gives you the style or how the structure will be displayed. So in CSS, how the comments are represented. Before that, what is a comment? Comment explains the purpose of the coding. It helps others read and understand the code easily. It serves as a reminder to you for what it all means. So comment always starts with /* and always end with star and slash. Now you can see that this part is called as comment. This comment will not be processed, but it is for readability. And now we'll see the structure of a rule. A CSS rule is made up of a selector and a declaration. The declaration consists of a property and value. Now this is an example. So this is a selector and this is called a declaration. The declaration has got a property and value. So we are just giving an exact, or we just give how different selectors can be used. A selector is usually an element of HTML. So here you can say that body property : value. H1 again another element. It can also be defined like this. Now we have an exact example. You have H1 color : black, H1 font weight : bold, H1 background : white. So when you have the same selector, all these declarations can be combined together as one line. Here there is an answer. H1 color : black, font weight bold, background white. Now this is a different example where you have different selectors but this declaration is same. In that case, you can combine all the selectors like this. h1 comma h2 comma h3, then you have got the declaration. This comma must be there to say that all this h1, h2, h3 has got the same declaration. Now see, h1, h2, h3 are red and h4, h5, h6 are yellow. In that case, we can define a rule like this. So far we have seen the selector as an element. Now we have a class selector and it is given like this. .g color colon green. So this G can be used anywhere in the HTML element with the term class is equal to G. So every time you use class is equal to G in any element, the text color would be shown in green. Here is an example of CSS code that does something HTML alone could never do it right. We are going to indent every paragraph automatically. P text indent colon 3em. So wherever you have this P element in the HTML body, the text will be indented by 3em. So now every paragraph will be indented with 3em. But if you want to have a few paragraphs without an indent, what shall we do? Now we can define an extra selector p dot no indent text indent colon 0em. So any p that is part of a class called no indent should use 0em indentation. That is no indentation. So this is the declaration and this is how we use the code. P class no indent, a para with no indent. That means this text will be displayed without any indentation. But if you just use the P as it is without the class, then this text will be displayed with an indent 3em. Now we'll see a different type of selector which can be called as an ID selector. It is used for special formatting of only a few elements. So these ID selectors use a hash instead of a dot. Remember, the class selectors will start with the dot and ID selectors will start with the hash. So imagine 3 paragraphs, we'll call them par 1, par 2, par 3. We will make one red, one orange and one blue. So this is P hash par 1 color colon I red, P hash par 2 color colon orange and so on. So here how we use this par is with this ID. So P ID is equal to par 1, I am in red. So this ID selectors, so here it is associated with an element. So it can also be elementless. In that case it will be hash par 1 color colon red. So it would apply to all tags that specify ID is equal to par 1. What are the difference between ID and a class? So IDs are unique and can only be used once on a page. But classes can be used as many times as needed. So here's an example. You have hash main heading color colon green, dot name color colon red. So here you can see that h1 ID is equal to main heading names. That means these names will be displayed with the font color green. Then you have dot name. This is a class selector. So this class selector will be used with the term class is equal to name. That means Joe will be printed with the color red. Now we'll just see how the images can be included in the background. There are 4 properties that work with the images. One is background image, another one is background repeat, third is background position, and the last one is background attachment. Background image. This property sets an image in the background of an element. So these images and colors are layered. If not transparent, the last one listed in the CSS file is visible. Now this is an example. You have li background image colon URL flower.jpg padding left 10px. So what is this padding left? We'll see later in this session. Here we use that image flower.jpg as a background image. Suppose you want to do it without CSS, then this code will be like this. Body background is equal to graphics.jpg, text is equal to some color, bg color is hash all zeros. So this can be converted to CSS like this. Body background image colon URL graphics.jpg, and the rest are all same. All these properties must be enclosed by the curly braces. Now, so you think this is not a big deal, but CSS adds some special features. One of the most important is the background repeat property. So the possible values for this property are repeat, repeat X, repeat Y, or no repeat. That is background repeat colon repeat. The image is repeated both horizontally and vertically. But if you give the value as repeat X, then the background image will be repeated horizontally. Repeat Y will repeat the background image vertically. If you don't want to display or if you don't want to repeat any image, then you can say that no repeat. Two more important properties, background attachment and background position. Background attachment, it allows the background to scroll or not. So if you specify colon scroll, then the background will be scrolled. If you specify fixed, the background will not scroll. What is this background position? To position the background image, it takes two values. One is at vertical position and the second one is horizontal position. The values for this can be in px or it can be in percentage, or you can specify top, center and bottom. For the second attribute, it can also be px, percentage, left, center, right. That means any of these combinations, and these combinations can come as a parameter. So if you have left top, then the image will be repeated here or printed here. If it is center top, it will be placed here. So the background position property positions the image using either combined keywords or length values or percentage values. Background attachment property fixes or scrolls an image in the browser window. Values include fixed and scroll. So now let us see an example. If you want a background to be repeated to be at the top right, then you can specify background position top right. If you want it to be at the bottom center, then I can say background position bottom center. And you don't want to repeat anything, then I can say colon no repeat. So this is the order: background colon background color, background image, background repeat, background attachment and background position. To set background color as white, background image pattern.jpg, background to never repeat and never scroll, you could use body background colon, and this is for the color. Next one is the image, and then you say you don't want to repeat anything, and that background attachment is fixed. Now if you think CSS is an extra, so what will HTML will look like without a CSS? So it is like this. The HTML elements typically flow from top to bottom of the page, top to bottom, and position themselves from the left by default. So with CSS, we can create containers or divs to better organize the content and make a web page visually appealing. So here you can see that this is one page where you have that div elements. So the CSS works on the box model. A typical web page consists of many boxes joined together from top to bottom. These boxes can be stacked, nested and can float. So A typical web page will look like this. Here you have a header section, then you can have a place for menu, you have a place for main, and then you have got a footer section. All these sections are contained in the container. So, how will this be represented in CSS? You can see that div id is equal to container, and underneath that you have div id header insert title, div id menu content slash div, and then you have div id is equal to main content slash div. So you have the divs or IDs or class names as a HTML and uses them to style the elements. You can have hash container, then you can have hash menu, hash main, and hash footer. So the box property, it has got certain attributes. You have background color, width, padding, margin, border width, border color, and style. So here's another example. You have div id is equal to header, then you have div id is equal to content, then you have div id is equal to footer. So how this content will be represented? Hash content, background color hash ccc, margin bottom 10px, border 1px, dashed line, then color and width. So here we have seen how a tag called div is used. So it is a container unit that encapsulates other page elements and divides the HTML document into sections. Use div elements to group together HTML elements and apply CSS rules to many elements at once. For instance, by wrapping a set of paragraph elements into a div element, apply a font to all paragraphs at once by applying a font style to the div tag instead of coding the same style for each paragraph element. So, how are these things represented? This portion is called margin and this is called padding. This represents the width and this represents the height and this is the border. So padding is nothing but the space between the border and the content of the cell. Margin is nothing but the space between the elements outside the box and the box. So you can have hash box width is equal to 50x, or you can say width is equal to 50 em or 100% or then auto. So you have another attribute called float. It makes elements float to the left or right of the screen positioned where they are in the HTML. So floating allows word wrapping. Here is some text which wraps around the box floated to the left. You have hash box, float colon left, margin right colon 10px. Suppose you are floating all the elements and then you want to detach the element, then you can use a property called clear. So hash box 3, background color white, border 1px, solid hash 000, clear colon both. So you can specify a border for a block. So assume that we have a box ID and how is it represented? Hash box, border top, red dotted 1px, bottom red dotted 1px and so on. The same thing can also be written like this, border colon red dotted 1px, because for all these properties these values are same. Or it can also be written like this, border color red, border style dotted and then border width 1px. So as I said, padding is the space between the text or content and the border. You can use padding for all the element or all around the element or specify each side of the rectangle separately. So you can say padding colon 10px or padding 10px space 10px or you can specify it for 4. So if you have only one value, then it will be taken as left. If you have two values, it will be taken as left, right, and all other things are given like this. So we have a box where the main heading is printed. So this can be written like this: dot heading, color colon red, letter spacing, text transform, word spacing, text alignment, font family, text declaration, so on. So it can be used like this: h3 class is equal to heading, main heading. So you can arrange the background colors and images as layers. They are all like sheets of paper, one on top of the other. So you can say hash bg background URL leaves.jpg. No repeat, top left. You define another selector called hash main. It is called background color red. Next one is hash box, background color is equal to yellow. So the power of cascading. So we have seen the cascading can be given as inline or embedded or external style sheet. And the style applied for parent will also be applied for the child tag. So you have multiple styles or multiple sheets, then they start to cascade and sometimes compete with one another due to CSS inheritance feature. Any tag on the page could potentially be affected by any of the tags surrounded by it. In that case, which one wins? Nearest ancestor wins. Inline style or directly applied style has got the highest priority than the style sheet declared in the head section. Saving time with inheritance. So what is inheritance? Inheritance is the process by which CSS properties applied to one tag or passed on to the nested tag. For example, you have some style specified for body. Then you have something called p paragraph which will use the property specified here. And that's all. So the paragraph tag will inherit the same styling as the body tag because P is always located inside the body. So these are all the resources available. I wish you happy day today. Thank you.